Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another of my misunderstood movie reviews. Now today's misunderstood movie review is for 1989's The Punisher. You know that one that stars Dolph Lundgren? No? You don't know that one that stars Dolph Lundgren? Well, this is it. There was a Punisher film that came out in 1989 that starred Dolph Lundgren. It was directed by Mark Goldblatt and it also had Louis Gossett Jr. in it and Jerome Crabb. Now this is a bit of an unusual Punisher for a couple of reasons, and when people these days normally think of Punisher films, they tend to think of the Thomas Jane 2004 one, which I do like, and the disastrous Ray Stevenson one, which I don't think's that bad, and the much lauded Netflix TV show that I haven't watched unfortunately, but I do want to get around to watching. But before all that, this one was released, and I actually was a big fan of this when I was younger. It's a good, entertaining action film, and you don't necessarily have to be a super fan of Punisher to enjoy it, because it doesn't shove the fact that this is a comic book character in your face, this film, at all. In actual fact, he doesn't even wear the Skull t-shirt in this, which peeved a lot of fans at the time, and didn't go down particularly well. And despite popular belief, Marvel didn't ban the use of the Skull t-shirt. Apparently they actually consulted on this film. They were happy to consult, but they didn't have creative control, hence why the only time you ever really see the skulls in this film is on the knives that he uses to kill the bad guys, and he didn't wear the t-shirt. I guess they wanted maybe a bit of more realistic approach. It was probably a mistake, but still it doesn't detract that badly from the film. Now this film focuses on Frank Castle, played by Dolph Lundgren, and he has been the Punisher for 5 years, so it's been 5 years since his family was killed by the mob, and up to this point he has killed 125, as he calls, guilty mobsters in the past 5 years. His ex-partner, played by Louis Gossett Jr., is trying to track him down in the hope that he can help him in some way. But in actual fact, the mob have got bigger problems on their hand because the Yakuza have come to town and they're taking over, and in order to take over they kidnap the children of the heads of the mafia families, and it is up to Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, to try and get these children back, because while he is happy to kill mobsters and gangsters and criminals, he is not happy to see innocent children, regardless of who their parents are, being taken captive by the Yakuza. Right, so that's the basic premise of the story that we get here. So like I say, this is an interesting Punisher film. I actually think it's a nicely made action film with some entertaining set pieces and action moments in it. Yeah, it ain't perfect. Dolph Lundgren, this was one of his earlier films, so his acting, you could describe it as a little bit limited, I suppose, but he does a decent enough job and he looks the part in regards to Frank Castle. He has this dyed hair and things like that. But interestingly, apparently Michael Paré and Christopher Lambert were both considered for the role, but I'm not sure whether they were in line to take it or they were just considered. But however, Dolph Lundgren was cast. I think there are some fun aspects to this film where if you actually watch it, he never really uses the same gun twice. Sometimes you'll just stop using the gun, or it'll get knocked out of his hand, and rather than pick it up and use it again, he just carries on, runs off. He never uses the same gun twice, which is quite noticeable at some points in the film and quite fun, I think. And interestingly, this film was released theatrically worldwide, even though I didn't see this in the cinema. I had this on VHS for years, but it wasn't released in the US theatrically, and I think this apparently had something to do with New World Pictures. Was sold at the time, and the people they were sold to, or people who bought them, weren't interested in releasing it theatrically in the States, something like that. But like I say, it's a fun, entertaining film. It moves along at a great pace, this film, because it's not held back by telling an origin story, because he's an already established character. I think they do a pretty good job of establishing him as the Punisher, and you do get occasional flashbacks in regards to what happened to his family, which basically fill in the blanks, and anybody watching a Punisher film, even at that time in 1989, would have a fair understanding of who the Punisher was. So I always think it's a bit odd sometimes to do an origin story for characters that we all know anyway. Sometimes they work really, really well, and sometimes I think they overdo it in regards to origin stories. And it's so, yeah, there are things to look at in this film and think that's a bit of its time. You know, there's a snitch in this film who's played by like a tramp ex-English thespian that basically gives Dolph Lundgren all the information he ever needs. He knows where all the drug deals are going down. He knows where all the children have been kidnapped and taken to. I just think it was an interesting plot device to have this snitch who knows literally everything about everybody and gives this information to Frank Castle anytime he needs to find out where somewhere is. When you look at it now, it's a very, very dated plotline, and it doesn't particularly work, but it is quite amusing, and the interactions between them are pretty interesting. So I think this is a misunderstood movie. If you were to ask people, you know, what is the best Punisher movie, they'll give you a definitive answer, or they'll say the Netflix show. Very few people will ever talk about this one, and they're quite happy to call it the worst Punisher film, which I don't think it is at all. I think it's actually on par with the Thomas Jane one, even though I prefer the Thomas Jane one just. But I think this is, for its time as well, this is 1989, remember, years before Marvel films took over cinema, years before Blade, which was, you know, that was 1998, was it, or 1997? And that was years before Marvel started making really, really top-notch superhero films. So for its time, 1989, I think it does a decent job of the character, and it does this character justice to a large degree on screen. And just above all that, it's a fun film to watch for sure, but don't expect a masterpiece. So that is my review from The Punisher, 1989's version of The Punisher. I believe it is a misunderstood movie, and I've given it an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll see you next time for more reviews on Screen Stars.